Hey guys, and welcome to this week's YouTube video. My name is Gaya and I'm here to talk to you about 10 top tips that I've come up with to help you to cook at university. So I've personally been on a huge culinary journey throughout the whole of university. When I started back in 2017, I really did not know how to cook. I think the only thing I could make was probably toast. I think I hadn't bothered with cooking up until then. So it was definitely a big jump for me, especially because my parents were cooking for me all the time. And then having to fend for myself, it was definitely very daunting. So this brings me on to my very first tip, which is to set yourself a realistic goal. I want you to think about how much do you actually want to cook in a week. Personally, I don't really want to be cooking every day, especially when I have busy days at university. I kind of try and cook 2 to 3 times a week. Think about your schedule. Do you have busier days? Do you have kind of half days? Or you might even be working part-time as well. So you want to kind of schedule in when is the best time for you to cook. And I think the best thing here is to essentially cook on the days when it's not very busy for you, just so you can enjoy the process a little bit more. My second tip is essentially to find a really good supermarket which is affordable for yourself. At the moment, I've been shopping, well, not here in Tanzania, but back in Leicester, I've been shopping at Aldi and sometimes Lidl as well, because they've been relatively cheaper, especially with the cost of living crisis that we're going through here in the UK. And then this leads me on to tip number 3. I want you to think about setting a budget for yourself for the week for your food shop. And as well as your food shop, you can include a little bit of money for eating out as well. So I try and limit my food shop for around £30 a week, and this can vary depending on what I buy. Sometimes you might be spending a bit more, especially if you're buying more store cupboard stuff like rice, like canned things, and like things for your freezer as well. Then other weeks it can like vary if you've already got those things at home already. So I think budgeting is a really important thing at university, just to make sure that you're not overspending or underspending. I always think that you shouldn't underspend on food because you need food for energy to do work to survive. Tip number 4. So now you've figured out your budget, you figured out where you want to shop. I want you to think about what kind of cooking utensils you might need. Some of the essentials that I've got written down here, and I'm going to read it out for you, is a big knife, a chopping board, wooden spoon, spatula, frying pan, pot and a big pot, cheese grater, tin opener, strainer and Tupperware. Tupperware is very important because if you do meal prep, you can put all that excess food away and have it for another meal. Tip number 5 is to make a meal plan. Making a meal plan is so important because it gives you an idea of what you want to eat, especially for dinner during the week, and helps you to kind of formulate your shopping list as you go along as well. Things that I like to make are like pasta, a curry of some sort, chili, and sometimes I like having frozen food as well. Tip number 6. This is kind of a really easy tip, which I think you probably do anyway. It's to basically make a shopping list, just so you know all the essentials that you need for that week or for the next 2 weeks. And also, if you use the notes app on your phone, you can kind of use the tick box function to tick and untick things, and you can basically reuse it each week as well. I think essential things that you might need to include on your shopping list for the week are a few freezer items. I always find that when it gets to Thursday, Friday during the week, I'm kind of tired, I can't be bothered cooking, so it's nice to put a burger in the oven and have some salad on the side, or a quick pizza as well. Tip number 7, and this is a tip which I kind of learnt off my mum whilst she cooks, and how she kind of keeps that area quite tidy and like kind of mess free when she's cooking. What I like to do is kind of tidy as I go along. I especially have a specific plate that I use to kind of put all of the waste products of like the vegetables that I'm cutting up, and that means that I can just chuck it all in the bin straight away at the end. And I think whilst things are boiling or things in the microwave or the oven, you can use that time instead of going on your phone to essentially do a bit of washing up. So by the time your food is ready, all you got to do is plate it up, eat it, and you've got less washing at the end. Tip number 8 is to try and cook some meals with your friends. If you are living in a flat or you're sharing a house with a few other people from your course, for example, then you can take it in turns to maybe cook like a big meal, or you can actually kind of split up the jobs and cook together. This is quite a fun thing to do. I've done it a few times with my friends, and also it takes off the kind of pressure of cooking as well, especially if you're rotating each week. I think it's also important to find out what each of you are like, kind of cater to your needs, especially if you've got allergies, if you've got different dietary requirements as well. I think it also saves a lot of time, and you can split the cost as well. Tip number 9, which I think is a super important tip, is that if you have access to the freezer, use it. If you've made, for example, some pesto pasta that you think you might not finish during the end of the week, pop it in some Tupperware and chuck it in the freezer, because future you will thank you because you've made this beautiful meal. I think this is really important because it allows you to have more meals available and and more accessible to you as well. And as well as meals that you've prepped already, like I mentioned earlier in the video, you can use frozen foods to your advantage, especially when you're feeling lazy like I do probably once or twice a week. And tip number 10, which I personally think is the most important tip, is to enjoy the cooking process at uni. Although it can be stressful, if you've made a plan and followed the tips that I've mentioned in this video, you can enjoy it, and it is a way to relax. Sometimes I find myself like dancing in the kitchen, listening to my favorite music, or I put on an episode on Netflix and kind of watch that, or watch a podcast as I'm cooking as well. And it's a good source of downtime, especially during those busy exam season periods. So I hope these 10 tips are super useful to you all. And if you've got any questions or further worries about cooking, then make sure you comment down below, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.